The famous statue of Atlas shows a man with a globe on his back. The Greeks never gave him a globe. They gave him the sky, and they never gave him a choice. He had stood with Cronus when the Olympian boy first sounded his thunder. He had led the front line for 10 years. When Olympus held and Tartarus opened, he watched his brothers walk down into the pit one by one, sealed away where they couldn't act on anything ever again. Zeus came to him last. The strongest of the Titans, the one who had led the charge against Olympus, got a different sentence. Not imprisonment, not death. Work. The sky needed to be held. The celestial dome, that vault with all its weight and darkness, needed something beneath it to keep it from collapsing onto the earth. Zeus decided that something would be Atlas. The weight came down onto his shoulders at the western edge of the world, where the land ends and there's nothing past it but ocean and the dark. Zeus turned away. There was no ceremony, no declaration of terms, no acknowledged resistance. Just the weight settling and the sound of the other gods departing, and then silence. The sun moved across the sky, held by the same hands that had once fought to tear down Olympus. Atlas didn't move. He couldn't. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the horizon he'd never cross, others were already walking toward this place. He didn't know their names yet. He came from the east on winged sandals, moving low over the water, following the last light to the edge of the world. Perseus, son of Zeus, son of the god who had done this, carried a coarse linen sack at his hip, knotted tight, and the sack moved slightly in ways that sacks don't move. Inside it was Medusa's severed head, a thing that had already ended several impossible things and wasn't done yet. He wanted shelter, a bed, the hospitality that the ancient world considered a sacred obligation between host and traveler. It wasn't an unreasonable request. Atlas refused. There was a prophecy. It had been sitting in him the way certain knowledge sits, not forgotten, just waiting. A son of Zeus would come to this place. A son of Zeus would take what mattered most. The Western Garden, the golden apples in the care of his daughters, who kept watch at the edge of his reach. The prophecy had described this moment with uncomfortable precision. And now here was a son of Zeus, standing at his threshold, asking to be let in. He couldn't yield. The weight above him hadn't changed. Nothing about his situation gave him the luxury of being wrong. Perseus didn't negotiate. He turned his face away, reached into the sack, and held the head outward. Stone moved up from Atlas's feet. It took him the way cold water takes a fire, not all at once, but certainly. He would have felt it in his ankles first, then his shins, the gray spreading through the muscle, the warmth of blood replaced by something final and still. His expression fixed. His awareness faded. What had been a titan became geology. The Atlas Mountains in North Africa carry his name. Travelers found a range of mountains shaped like a man at the edge of the known world and named them for what they thought they saw. The stone is still there, and above the stone, the sky is still up. The Greeks held both of these things at once and didn't explain it. Atlas was the mountains. Atlas was still holding the sky. Move on. Because the stone didn't close the door. Another visitor was already coming, and this one wouldn't ask for shelter. He came on foot. No winged sandals. No divine inheritance glinting in the air. Just a man, if the word still fit him, walking across the western edge of the world with the particular exhaustion of someone who had already done 11 impossible things and was here for a 12th. This was Heracles, greatest of the heroes Greece would ever produce, and he didn't look like a threat. He looked like someone who needed help. He stopped below Atlas and looked up. He was searching for the golden apples of the Hesperides, 3 apples from a garden guarded at the edge of the world, fruit no mortal hand could simply take. But Atlas knew that garden. He had made it. The Hesperides, his daughters, the keepers of that orchard, would open the gate for their father in a way they would never open it for a hero. So Heracles made an offer. He would hold the sky, he said, just long enough for Atlas to walk to the garden, speak to his daughters, and bring back what was needed. Atlas would carry nothing. For however long it took, Atlas had held the sky since before most things in the world existed. No living being had ever offered to share the weight, not for a moment, not for any reason. The offer sat there between them like something he didn't have a word for. He said yes. The transfer wasn't graceful. Heracles took the weight the way a man receives something heavier than he expected, his legs adjusting, his spine finding a new angle, the breath leaving him in a slow, controlled release that said he hadn't fully understood what he was agreeing to until it was already done. And Atlas's hands came down, empty, for the first time in centuries, in what felt like all of time. His palms faced downward and held nothing. He stood there for a moment, just experiencing that. The absence of weight is its own sensation when weight has been the only sensation you have known. Then he walked, not quickly, not with celebration, a titan moving across the western landscape on his own legs toward a garden his daughters kept, carrying nothing but himself. The sky remained where it had always been. Heracles held it. And Atlas, for the length of one errand, was free. He didn't look back. The man who hadn't moved in centuries walked forward, and the distance between him and his post grew, and for a moment the world contained something it had never contained before. Atlas, unencumbered, moving through it. He was coming back. He was always going to come back. He just didn't know it yet. He came back, 3 golden apples in his hands, the garden gate closing behind him, the western light already fading, and somewhere behind him Heracles was still standing at the post, arms up, holding everything Atlas had been holding for longer than memory. And Atlas stopped, not because he was tired, because he wasn't. Because for the first time in centuries, his body knew what it felt like to move without weight, to breathe without the sky pressing the air back down into him. The apples were warm in his hands. His daughters had opened the gate. He had walked through the world as though he still belonged to it. He thought, why should that end? He would carry the apples to wherever Heracles needed them to go. That was reasonable. That was even helpful. He wasn't running. He was simply continuing to be useful, just differently. He would deliver them himself. He would keep walking. Centuries on one side of the scale, one afternoon on the other. He had done the math. Heracles listened. He didn't argue. He said, "Of course, that makes sense. Only, could Atlas take the sky back just for a moment? Just while Heracles adjusted his position, found his footing properly under the weight. It would only take a second. The ask sounded small. Atlas reached up. The weight came down. He remembered this. The precise pressure of it, the way it settled across his shoulders like something that had always known exactly where it belonged. He felt the sky find its old grooves in his body. And Heracles picked up the apples. He didn't hurry. He didn't apologize or explain. He gathered them into the fold of his cloak, turned, walked, and was gone. The trick required no cruelty. It only required that Atlas be willing to help one more time. That he be, one final time, the kind of person who says yes. He had been waiting centuries for someone to say yes to him. That was exactly what they used. The moment of empty hands was over. The weight was back where it always was, back where Zeus had placed it, back where the sky had learned to press, back where the body of a titan had slowly shaped itself into something that could bear what nothing else could. Somewhere in the Renaissance, an artist looked at that ancient story and made a quiet decision. He gave Atlas a globe. Round, solid, mappable. A man who chose to carry the world. Strength made symbol. But strength is a better story than punishment. A man choosing the world is easier to look at than a prisoner handed the sky and told that was the end of his options. The famous image is the revision. The original is harder. At the western edge of the world, where the sun goes when it leaves, the figure is still there. Same posture as the first day. Shoulders under the vault, feet on the stone. The weight exactly where Zeus left it. The sky hasn't fallen, which means he hasn't let go.